right, Todd.
All right, let's do it.
We're going to kick this off,
All right, let's
but
go.
we are here with Todd Nepola. Todd is the founder and CEO president of Current Capital. It's a leading private equity real estate investment company. You've been in the game for 25 plus years. You run a property management and leasing arm, and you've been acquiring hundreds of millions of dollars worth of value-add real estate in various asset classes, which to me is very impressive. There's a ton of people that stick to one vertical. You have been super successful in multiple verticals. That's what I'm really impressed about. We're going to dive deep into that. He's an entrepreneur. He's a philanthropist. He's in incredible shape. You mentioned I'm in good shape. When I look at you, I was like, damn. And I see you running.
That's just because I'm a lot older.
Yeah, but I see you running the Aventura Circle,
right.
and you push yourself daily, so I love it. And he embodies and dominates the 4 F's: family, fitness, finances. And I'm going to switch the last F to father. I know that you're an endearing and a very loving father to your 2 girls.
Yes.
But one thing that really, really inspired me about this book right here, which is the keeping it real in commercial real estate, which we're going to dive into, is that you dedicated that book to your father.
Yep.
So I wanted to talk to you about this man, your dad, your pops. What did he instill in you? What were some of the lessons that you learned from him at a very young age that carried yourself into this mega success that you are today?
I love you asked that question, and I was just thinking as you were asking it, I was like, my God, in the hundreds of podcasts and interviews I've done, no one's ever asked about my father. They ask about your upbringing, but they never ask about your dad. So it's kind of funny because I always look back, and I was born in 1972. So kids who were born in the 70s and 80s, today what would happen would have been considered child abuse, but they were different values and principles. You did have to go to work. You did have to hustle. And if you got out of line, I had an Italian dad. You get smacked down the stairs, but it was never abuse. Yeah. It wasn't like I was in danger of my life, but I knew if I got out of line, I didn't want to go home because the result was going to be there. But those are the values my dad taught us. And when I was very, very young, my parents allowed me to go work. When I was 4 or 5 years old, I was selling seeds for a company called Olympia Seed Company out of the back of a magazine. And you could either get a prize or get some money. So I would go knock on my neighbors' doors and try and sell it. And my parents let me have that. Now, my dad wasn't traditional in a sense where I wanted to play Little League and he wasn't going to participate in that. So I didn't play Little League. I didn't play in team sports because he wouldn't do that. But what he did do is, since I was knee high, he would take me to work with him. And at first he was in the car business, so I was driving cars at 11, 12 years old. Whether he knew about it or not, I don't know. But I was out there, and he let me explore all these things. And he taught me the business. He would take me to car auctions, and he'd say, see that guy? That guy's full of shit. Watch what he's about to do. And we were raised in New York, so there's more of that there. So I always learned these values from my dad of hard work and what to do. Now, the difference between my dad and I is my dad's goal was always to be retired. He just didn't really want to work.
And he retired in his 40s.
He did. We moved to Florida when my dad was in his early 40s, and he actually got in the bail bonds business. And I worked as a bail bondsman at 18 years old, which was super cool for an 18-year-old kid.
That's cool.
So, everybody else, we would go out all night long, and then I had a cell phone when nobody did. And then at 1, 2 in the morning, I had to go to Dade County Jail or Broward County Jail and get a few people out, and that's how I made my money.
Insane.
So it was fun. And my dad just didn't really want to work. He wanted to play golf. And he's one of the only people I know that retired probably in his mid-40s or early mid-40s and never really looked back on it. But he played golf 3 times a week. He played cards 3 times a week. He traveled. He never lost his energy or anything. So my fear would be if I had nothing to do, I'd be bored. He was never bored. But he really raised me great.
So there was a big kind of momentum shift in your life. You grow up in New York, 13, 14 rolls around. Your family moves to Aventura. Mm-hmm. Your father becomes a worker, has setback after setback, and then becomes a landlord and buys these outdoor lots and becomes a real estate investor. Life starts getting a little more comfortable. You're experiencing his evolution. Yep. He's buying some cool cars. He's buying the cigarette boat. He's buying the nice watches. How did that shift in your father's success mold you to, at a young age, to say, man, it is possible? Achieving financial success and having mom and dad and seeing them together, and also being a kid, because a lot of people hit it in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, but the come up is difficult. Yeah. You got to see a little bit of success as a young kid.
Yep.
Let's talk about that for a second. How did that shape you? You know, getting a little taste of the good life in your teens.
So my dad originally, his first career out of school, and when I was a young kid, he was an engineer. So he had a job and he got laid off, and that's what I talk about in the book. And he loved cars. So he started fixing up cars, buying them at auction, and selling them out of the house. And well, rest in peace, Dad, I'm going to sell you out. But what he would do is he'd say to my mom, you sell the cars, say they were yours. So when people come look at the cars, my mom would say, this is my car, I'm selling it. But really my dad was, flipping cars like people flip properties now. So from there, he decided he should go into the car business and get a lot. So he started renting a couple of car lots. And then from there, he said, it's better off to buy the lot. So he bought it. And then he figured out that, wait a second, I could actually make more money renting these to other people than I make going to work 7 days a week in the freezing cold and being at auctions. So he started renting the car lots. And that's what put him in retirement. So he didn't actually go into real estate to be in the real estate business. It kind of found him. But yeah, it had a tremendous impact watching my dad go from being laid off and never making my brother I feel in any way. We never felt like we were going to be poor or in trouble. We stayed in the house. Now, did he struggle? Of course he struggled, but he didn't let his kids know that. And my mom helped out too, of course. From that point, to see him start to achieve success, and as he was buying these lots, and they were all used car lots is what he wanted to have in the beginning, his lifestyle changed. He went from having 1 car to 2 cars to 3 cars. Now, my dad's philosophy is different than mine. His was always, for every deal I do, I get myself a reward. Now, one thing about my dad, every reward was his reward, nobody else's. So it was his boats, his cars, his extra homes. But to watch that happen was tremendous. What was even bigger motivator was we moved to an area which was called Turnberry Isle. And at that time in the late 80s, early 90s, Turnberry was the greatest place on earth to live. I mean, people who know it be like, yeah, that's a special piece of property. So the people that live there, I mean, the developer is Don Sofer. He's a local legend. But I mean, you had everybody from famous actors. I mean, you had Jack Nicklaus and Jack Nicholson on the same day in the golf course. You had every celebrity. I mean, Hugh Hefner was coming to town. I mean, it was just an unreal lifestyle. So to be a young kid, my move was, how do I emulate these people? Because I want to be successful like them.
But what is the driving force? Because there's a lot of people. So the people that I almost respect the most in this life are the people that come from money, but are ultra ambitious because they don't need to be, because they see it and they had a comfortable upbringing. There's the people that came from nothing that went for the stars and got there. But there's a lot of people that are kind of stuck in the middle that don't feel the pain, but don't really have the hunger to really overachieve. You were kind of in the middle, and what I respect most about you and a lot of people that are in the middle is you don't necessarily have the pain of, I want to get out of being at the bottom, and I want to shoot for the top. So as a young kid, you're here, Aventura Isle, Turnberry Isle, you're around celebs, you're around big power players, people that are making money, nice cars are rolling up. You started detailing business, don't you? So who said you should start a business to connect with these big hitters? Who's guiding you? How do you come up with these ideas?
It wasn't at that point, let me connect with these people. It was just figuring out that I'm here on this special piece of property. Everybody's nice to me because I'm a young kid and I would talk to everybody. I still talk to everybody I could meet. And I said, I should wash their cars, because most of the people in Turnberry came for the weekends. They flew in from New York, Chicago. So I live here. So if I clean their cars on Thursday and Friday, I could do it in the mornings and afternoons before and after school. I was in high school. They'll come on the weekend, and then when they leave on Sunday night and Monday morning, I clean and put the covers back on. And sometimes they come once a month, twice a month. So I started doing that with the cars and their boats too. And I was 15 years old, and a guy would give me the keys to a cigarette and say, go fill it up with gas, kid. And I was driving around cigarettes and having the time of my life. So it wasn't about networking with them. It was about access to these people and figuring out that my friends had jobs. Remember, one of my friends who was doing the best, he worked at Merry-Go-Round in the Aventura Mall, and he was getting commissions of whatever percentage. And I was like, I'm washing cars and boats. I get the whole day free because there's people using their stuff. You can't be out there. So I have the whole day free. I work in the morning and night, and I'm making more than teachers in my school. I mean, I was making a lot of money doing this.
Amazing.
And the people were so generous because they saw in you. So, you go work for a really rich guy. Back then, they'd throw me $100 tip. There was a couple of guys, I never forgot his name. His name was Michael Street, and he was in the matzah business, Street's Matzah. Every time he saw me, I used to take care of his Donzi and his Ferrari. Every time this guy would see me, he'd hand me $100, which today would be like someone giving you $500.
That's incredible.
And I was 15 years old.
Yeah, and that generosity.
And you remember that forever.
That's incredible. as a young kid, I mean, I was doing paper routes
Yep.
as a 14-year-old. I had a little moped, and I would take that around. Before I had a bicycle, 11, 12. I was always making money at a really young kid. But one thing that I realized as a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old is, after hours and Saturday and Sundays would roll around. Kids weren't hustling. Kids weren't knocking on doors. Hey, can I wash your car for $20? In fact, let me wash your car for free. Whatever you want to give me is totally up to you, and I'll do the best job ever. Yep. I'll spend 2 hours, scrubbing, vacuuming, and detailing this beautiful car. Whatever you want to give me is totally up to you. I looked around the neighborhood, and I lived in a neighborhood that probably had 500 homes. No one was out there doing it. I also grew up in Puerto Rico. You think South Florida's hot? Go to the islands. It is so hot down there. But people would respect that. I would knock on their door and be like, who is this kid grinding as a 14-year-old? Take 20, take 40. And the really generous people would give me $80 to $100 because they saw that I would treat their car like it was mine. So you remind me of myself in the sense that at a very young age, I was very opportunistic. I also, and I'm curious if this ever happened to you, was there a moment in time, whether you were 15, 20, 25, because you've always been around successful people, you've learned from them, you've had a ton of mentors growing up, was there ever a time that it clicked, that you said to yourself, this guy, even though I haven't made it, even though I haven't even started my professional career, that guy reminds me of myself. He looks like me. We laugh at the same jokes. He's as articulate as I am. We have the same hobbies. Was there ever a moment in time that you realized that the successful people out there were just everyday guys?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've always kind of known that, even back when I was even younger, living in Staten Island, New York. You knew who the successful people were, and you kind of learned they were no different. You just got to force yourself to get into that. And that's why when I meet a lot of young guys now that are 16, 17, 18, I tell them they think that rich people are different. I said, do me a favor, go get a job at a local country club and carry the golf bag or the golf carts or valet park, and you'll see they're not different. They could actually be kinder because they look to you, just like I said to you, man, I'm so proud of you, you're doing so great, because you're a lot younger than me.
Yeah.
So if you see a kid right now who's 16 years old and he's on the come up, you're inspired by this kid because he's coming after you and you love it. You want to see it. So you're going to help him any way you can. So you realize that as you're aging, for sure.
Completely. So let's go through, 18 to 22, kind of this college era. Mm-hmm. You finish, school, and then you become a stockbroker. Mm-hmm. What was it about being a stockbroker that excited you? Because you were a damn good one. Yes, you're a 25-year-old making bank. Yep. There's not many 25-year-olds today that are making the money you were making back then.
That's true.
What was it? Did you study the market better than everyone? Did you have the right mentors? What was it about your skills being an amazing stockbroker in your 20s, in your early 20s?
It was two things. It was the movie Wall Street, which made everybody want to be a stockbroker. Every kid out of college, or even not out of college, wanted to slick their hair back and be Gordon Gekko. Yeah. Because Gordon was great. We all wanted to be him.
You've been that guy for decades. You've been that guy for decades.
Right. So you wanted to emulate that too. So how do you become him? And then it was the work ethic that I saw at the places I worked. And these people weren't stockbrokers because I went, long story long, I went and applied for a job at Merrill Lynch. And this old guy, I know his name, but I won't say it now, who was like a legend in the business. He actually told me when I went in, I was referred to him from a friend, and they said, go sell furniture for 5 years, kid, you're not going to make it. That motivated me. But then when I got in an environment, a lot of young guys that were working, and if you weren't at work at 8 o'clock in the morning, you were fined. You were given an actual fine because you were late. And if you thought you were going home before 7 o'clock Monday through Thursday, you were kidding yourself.
Yeah.
We just worked.
Yeah.
And when everybody around you is working, it becomes a fun competition. But yeah, when you start to realize how much you're making, and to me, it was the first year I realized that I graduated college in 94, and I got my license in February of 1995, and I went on my own in June of 95. It was that Christmas, I'll never forget, I was working on Las Olas, and I went to the Galleria Mall, and I started walking around. I said, I'm going to buy Christmas presents. And I said, holy shit, I got a lot of money. I could buy a lot of things. And you realize,
it's a good feeling.
You realize, like, I'm pretty rich for a young kid. Like, wow, I could buy anything. And I didn't want to blow the money. That's when I started to save the money and get ready to buy a property, which I didn't know was coming, but I knew that I didn't want to blow all that money.
Yeah. So 25 was your first property or 27?
25.
Okay, so
1998.
25 rolls around and you got some money stashed away.
Mm-hmm.
You're this young, up and coming, slick back hair, stud of a stockbroker, putting money in your pocket. You're smart. You're not blowing it on the fancy stuff. I'm going to compound this money. I'm going to buy a deal. The difference between brokering stocks and buying real estate is the cash flow.
That's right.
You have the appreciation, the depreciation. There's so many elements of real estate that brokering in general does not have. You could either take a one-time hit or you could buy a deal and kind of think a little more long-term, where that one-time hit can result into 2, 3, 4x annual cash flow if you hold on to the property long enough. That's the beautiful thing about cash flow. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about investing in real estate. You say, I got this money saved up. I'm going to put it into a property. So you're on the hunt. Take us through that story. I think you pass an asset that you say, I think I want to own that thing. 12,000 square foot deal, multi-bay. Let's go through the deal. What excited you about the deal? How did you get the deal? How did you add value to that deal so quickly?
So just to back it right before the real estate so people know, I didn't know it was going to be real estate. I knew my father owned properties and he was retired. Yeah. So that was one option. But in addition to that one option, I was saying things like everything was sold online, but not online, on TV and infomercials. So I looked at all kinds of businesses. I was going to buy a whole bunch of ATM machines and I'd have to operate them. I was looking for any ways to make money when I was sleeping. Now they call it cash flow. Back then it was make money when you sleep. Yeah. And I actually got very close to buying a chain of payphones because I knew a guy in that business, which I say, thank God I didn't buy. I always tell that story.
Isn't that something?
But I used to drive by this property, and this was 1998. This was after people who know, there was the savings and loan crisis in the late 80s, early 90s. This property was built in 1991, and the developer lost it. And he owed $1.2 million to a bank called Gentra, forgetting the land price. And it was a beautiful warehouse with all automotive tenants on a main street, and it had a for sale sign. So we called it, and I cut a deal, and I got the property. They wanted $600,000, which was 50% of the debt. And I thought I was a genius because I negotiated all the way down to $575. I bought the property in June of 1998, and it had 4 tenants.
1 second. Right before you close that deal, because there's some moving parts to closing a real estate deal. Got to get an attorney. You got to scrub title. You got to make sure that it sits on a solid ground. Do your PCA, environmental. Who are you kind of going on the fly here and saying, I'm going to figure this thing out? Are you learning from someone?
This is where ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Because I really didn't know.
Because you got a $1.2 million piece on the deal. You're buying it for basically half off. Yep. You got some vacancy. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, but you still have to execute.
You sure do.
So you did execute, obviously. Take us through the steps in that learning curve on how you were able to execute and close so quickly.
Well,
and did you raise the money from some partners, or was it all of your cash?
This was every penny I had. And I was so afraid because I never done a closing, never owned anything before, didn't even own a car. Yeah. So at that point I said, I'm not even sure I have the money. I went and applied for 3 credit cards because I thought I was going to be short. That I said, I need to have this for cash access just to go get cash advances on the credit cards. Luckily, I didn't need that. Luckily, I had enough money to close. And the day I actually closed on the property, I had a whopping $50 left in my checking account. But I wasn't worried because I had a job. Yeah. And I didn't have a wife or kids. Yeah. I wasn't worried about anything.
So how much was it? What was the total capitalization?
I came out of pocket for about $120,000.
Incredible.
As every penny I had saved
at a 25-year-old, $120 to basically come up with the equity. Yep. The bank funded the balance.
The bank, Gentra out of Canada, cool. They were the holder of the loan, so they funded it. They gave me the deal, and back then, just it was 10% interest, and that was when interest had come down to 10. People were like, ooh, 10%'s good. And when you talk about that, I wasn't really aware of environmental issues. I did have an environmental test done, and they told me there's an oil water separator tank in the ground, and it could be a problem. You're also going back to 1998, so could be problems, could be resolved easier. But we did get a really good environmental company, and they removed it. Now, I would never buy a property like that without doing more tests, cool. But I didn't realize that it really could have leaked, and it could have been a huge problem, so I kind of got lucky.
So where did that developer go wrong? You came in and saved it, but was he... Let's talk about just really quickly, because I want to go through the execution of this deal. What was, and we could learn from this, the pitfall of that developer? He had this deal. There was a lender involved. He was over-leveraged on this deal. What happened?
That's right. You just said over-leveraged. If you have too much debt on a deal, you get wiped out. If you're comfortable in a deal, you'll always be okay. So if you own a property cash, which I don't support really doing that, but if you did, you're never going to lose your property. You can make less or make more, but you're never at risk of losing the property.
Yeah.
But he owed $1.2 million on the deal that I just bought for $575.
Incredible.
So, and he bought the land. I actually don't know what he paid for the land, but let's say the land was $100,000, $200,000 back then. He was over leveraged, couldn't support the debt, and the bank just took the property and he walked away.
Wow.
And it was easy to walk away.
And was there a broker involved in that deal, or did you deal
No
directly
broker.
with the lender?
No broker. It was a for sale sign. It was Gentra's number in Canada, and I called them and I got the deal.
Unbelievable. So you close the deal and you say, whoa, I got to get this thing figured out. Did you hire a PM and a leasing broker to get the spaces filled up? Who was in charge of renovating the plaza, cleaning up the interior and getting the property in lease-ready condition so you could plug tenants in to raise the value so you could either recapture your equity or you could sell it for a profit? What was the strategy going into it? How'd you execute?
It was me, myself, and I. And there was nobody else there. And I tell everybody when they buy their first properties, you really need to operate it yourself to learn the business. So I worked as a stockbroker. And at nighttime and on weekends, I took care of the property. I was lucky in the sense that I was 25 years old. So I had friends that would help me. It had 7 units, still does have 7 units. 4 of them had tenants, but the leases were broken because of the foreclosure. So, when it's foreclosed, the leases are no longer valid. So I was able to re-sign those 4 tenants. And then I got 3 new tenants. And I remember to this day, it was in 1998, my very first tenant. You never forget this stuff. His name was Adrian Lafont, and he had a company called Accessory Zone. He was going to do car accessories. And he signed the first lease. And I didn't know where to get a lease from. So I went to Office Depot and I got a commercial lease that's all filled out and you write the person's name in it. And then when Adrian Lafont came, he handed me a stack of cash. He was an Argentinian guy. Here's the money for the deposits. And first and last, I'm like, wow. I had a checkbook. So I paid the mortgage that I had each month. I paid the insurance. I paid the property taxes. I paid everything myself on a monthly or yearly basis. And I just managed it that way. But in that 6-month time frame from June of 98 buying it to December of 98, I increased the value by filling the units. We cleaned it up. It didn't need any renovations because it was a new building. It just needed the bays cleaned out that were vacant. It appraised for $800,000. I got a loan for $600,000 at 9%. I was so happy it was going down. I walked away from the closing with all my money back, plus like $11,000. But the greatest part was, starting in January, after all debt service and all expenses, it was $5,000 a month cash flow positive, and I wasn't spending $5,000.
So there's a lot that I want to unpack here. The one thing, which is what I did, which is what I feel that you did as well, is, and I was at a point in my career that I was on my own, had no money, but I was waiting for the deal. This is a deal. Yep. And I tell people that one deal can change your life. When you did a full cash out refi and you put in your 120 in the deal and the bank said, hey, take your 120 back, you're still 100% owner of the deal. And the tenants, top line revenue, got your expenses, you pay the debt, and that bottom piece is the cash flow that comes to you. And you could depreciate it and get all the benefits of that income that come to you. That's an aha moment where you say, whoa, this is powerful. I like this business. This is how wealth is created. I had a very similar situation where I was completely on my own. I was going through all of my savings, tapped into my wife's savings. We had 2 kids at the time. I was going to my wife and I was saying, we're burning through our cash. And it's painful because when you're not making money and you're spending money, you realize how quickly money will disappear. So in that moment, I said, I need cash flow. I need to find an instrument that will protect me from an income standpoint. So God forbid anything happens to me, I know, or I could reinvest the cash flow that's coming in. There's power in income. There's power in cash flow. The first deal that I did was a $5 million deal. It appraised for $7.5 million. It was 38 bays. It was an industrial deal, slightly larger than the one that you acquired. I didn't have money at the time. I raised the $1.5 million. That was the bridge between the debt, which was 3.5, and the 1.5, which was investor capital. I went to the investors and I said, I don't have any money, but this is an absolute grand slam. Give me 2 years. I'm not going to make a fee on the deal. I'm going to manage it. I'm going to lease it up. I'm going to rehab it entirely. I'm not going to make anything. Not a management fee, not an asset management fee, not a bookkeeping fee, nothing until you are made whole. until you get 100% of your equity back. And in 6 months, like you, I took that deal back to the bank and it appraised for $12 million. We put a $5 million debt piece. All the investors got their 1.5 back, and I got a third of the deal.
That's right.
I got a piece of the deal, and that deal still pays me today, and that deal changed my life.
That's right.
And I said to myself, if you can find deals in the marketplace, move quick, renovate, stabilize, add value, reappraise it, that's power.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something that I learned from you way back when you and I met 10 years ago. I heard this story.
Yep.
And it was so damn impressive that I said, it's about the deal. It's finding the deal that can change your life. That one deal changed my life, and it seems like it changed your life as well. So you're a stockbroker. You're doing this on the side. You buy another deal. Same formula works. You buy another deal. Same formula works. At what point in your professional career did you say, I want to go full-time investor? I want to go full-time with the commercial real estate thing. I like doing deals. I like owning assets. I like adding value to them. I like building my team. At what point in your life, how old were you? What was the transition? What made you feel confident that you could stop the stockbroker thing and go all in on CRE?
It was 2000 when the tech bubble burst. So a couple of things happened is stocks anybody could pick a stock between 1995 and 2000 because everything went up. And if it didn't go up, just stand by, it's going to go up because someone's going to tout it. It's just everything worked. And anything associated with .com just went straight to the moon until it didn't. And then what also happened is the same time, E-Trade and Ameritrade and these guys started coming out with online trading. So instead of paying me thousands of dollars of commission, you could pay 10, 15 bucks.
Yeah.
Who needs me?
Yeah.
And then the access to information went online. So now Bob, the investor, doesn't need me to read in a book, a Standard & Poor's book about the earnings. It's all online.
Yeah.
So the value of the broker went away. So the people who were doing what I did, which was basically trade stocks, people who wanted action, they got kind of phased out. And most guys went to raising money and just turning it over to money managers with Merrill Lynch and all these big banks. And they don't trade because there's no money in that anymore and nobody wants to do it. So I got phased out and I got into real estate. But I'll tell you where I made a mistake. It was great. And as I said, you live the way you live when you're young and single. But now at this point, now I get married. Then I have my 2 kids. I have my 2 daughters. Then I buy this big, beautiful house because the first one wasn't good enough. And even though people say I don't like owning houses, it's not an investment, but I'm not against owning them. So I bought the house, then I bought the toy car, and I bought the boat, and everything was going chugga, chugga, chugga. And I was doing great, and we were traveling and buying things. And then 2008 happened.
Yeah.
And then you go, uh-oh.
Ooh.
And the properties were fine because I don't believe in too much debt. So I never had a problem paying any of the property's bills. But instead of the tenant paying me $2,000, it was $1,500. Instead of $1,500, it was $1,200, which meant my money was going. And like you said about savings, I watched my savings account start to do this. And that's when we really transitioned to a lot of third-party management.
So that is interesting because I had this here as a question. There's a lot of investors that manage their own deals. You got into managing and leasing as a third-party manager and a third-party leasing agent, and you have exploded that business. Yes. I mean, I see your signs everywhere.
Yep.
So 2008 took place, the economy took a hit, and you said, I got to bring in some more money to this company. I got bills to pay. I got a family to support. Was 2008 the transition to create the management monster and leasing monster that Current Capital is today?
It was the greatest thing that happened because it changed my whole outlook on everything.
Yeah.
And I decided at that moment, I wasn't spending huge money. It wasn't like I was going to go broke, but when you see your savings dwindling, you know it's going to stop.
Yeah.
But what also happened is it got harder to run your own properties. So I got a lot of leasing and management accounts coming in. And it was at that moment I said, if I could get out of this mess, I will never use my real estate money ever again for any recurring expenses, ever. I'll use it if I want to go buy a stupid car or a boat or whatever. I don't have a boat, but things like that.
Yeah.
But I'll never live off my real estate money. I'll only use that money to buy more real estate or buy other things. And it was at that moment that the business started to change. So yeah, we got a lot of properties. And actually at that point, we got a lot of apartments, multifamily, and we took on a ton of them. And I'm always very honest, we were horrible at it. Yeah. We were terrible. We didn't like it. We weren't equipped for it. We weren't staffed for it. So at one point, I think we had like 700 apartments. Wow. We gave them all back because we were not good and the feedback wasn't good. And I didn't want to hear about, evicting, Mary and with her 3 kids. I wasn't doing that. But when you're growing a company, you take everything you can to make revenue. Now we only do commercial properties. That's how it's been for the last 15 years. But I will never spend my real estate money off that. And that's been the biggest multiplier. And I very rarely will talk about my personal wealth, but it exploded once I started taking every penny I had and either renovating my properties or buying more. So I am actually forced now to keep buying more and more properties from the cash flow, because I'm not going to go out and buy 4 vacation homes and a yacht and a helicopter and a plane. I'm just not going to do that because I don't want it. Maybe when I'm 80, I'll regret it. But right now, every penny that comes in from my assets buys more.
So there was this transition that took place, and I remember reading this in the book. You did a lot of your first deals with your own money.
Yes.
There becomes a transition in your life that you say, man, I've done this a few times over and I'm pretty damn good at it. Yeah. I could identify properties, I could elevate the NOI, I could reposition this deal, beautify the asset, and create millions of dollars worth of value on a deal by deal basis. You know, some people say, hey, I'm gonna keep it to myself, but there's a lot of people that say, I'm gonna scale and I'm gonna bring other investors' capital and we're gonna win together.
Yep.
What was that deciding factor for you to bring on investor capital, limited partner capital, and say, hey guys, let's do a deal together? At what point in your career were you ready for that, and what made you confident to kind of take that next step?
Well, the first time I actually brought in a partner was a friend of mine who wanted to invest, and we did it probably, I think it was like in November of 2007. So I think the deal worked for like 14 minutes, and then it became a disaster. Yeah. And he was a friend, and actually we wound up doing very well because they're both warehouse products, so we cool. did okay with it. But it was a long 4 or 5 years. Now dinners were a little uncomfortable because he put money in, I put money in, and like the deal sucked.
Yeah.
But that was timing. But he was okay because he had a job. But I got a little gun shy. But then after that, I was actually brokering some deals to some of my clients who had more money than me, and I was realizing how much money I was making them. And then I would see myself, I would do a deal, and let's say I bought a property for $4 million. I come up with, say, $1.2 million, and I was not looking for a deal the next day. And I said, I could be doing these better deals. I just sold a client a property for $21 million. I think it was like a $200,000-$300,000 commission, which was nice, but I'm like, today that property is probably worth $41 million, but I was like, he's making millions. I got to get into these deals. And I had so many people that always wanted to invest. I said, I got to move into that arena. So I started, like you said, studying people who were doing it and saying, I'm going to do both. Yeah. I'm still going to buy for myself, but I'm also going to buy with investors. So to make it fair and to make it unquestionable with the investors, I said, any deal below 7 million, I do on my own. It's just too small for me to do it with investors. Any deal over 7 million, no matter what, I do with investors. And that's how I did it. The other thing that I did that's different than most syndicators is that I said, I'll put the most money in the deal. Nobody will put more. Some people match, but I'll put the most money in the deal, and my money's in the deal, and my money's in first place, which basically means if I put $1 million into a deal and you put 500,000 in a deal, I'll lose my full $1 million before you lose $1. Yeah, and people like that.
That's awesome. Good for you.
We're able to buy a lot of properties. So that's how we scale on that end.
That is a great way to structure a deal.
Well, I credit that to a story I heard, which I don't know if it's factual, but I heard, and it was Donnie Sofer, who I think is a legend in our neck of the woods. If you don't know, he owns the Aventura Mall. Yeah. He built Turnberry, he built everything.
And I live in Aventura, so you know his name is everywhere.
Yeah, a big reach here. So if they don't know, he's an icon. He's in his 90s. He's the legend of real estate down here. Yeah. I was told the story that he started a restaurant in the Aventura Mall because he owned the mall, and it was called Biz Bistro. And he raised money from a group of friends. They were all rich guys, and they put money in and it failed. And he felt bad. He paid every single one of them back. And I said, and that's the right thing to do. If someone trusts you with their money and you're wrong, you owe them that money back if you can make it happen.
I just got goosebumps. Yep. That is huge.
Right. And that was the model I copied. And he doesn't know I copied it. That's what I say about mentors. You could copy them without even talking to them. Yeah. You could copy what they did.
That is so powerful. Yeah. So one thing that I've noticed about you over like the past 3 to 5 years, you've really stepped into this mentorship role. You look better than ever. You wrote this incredible book, and for anyone that is watching, this book is an absolute must read. It was almost written for someone that wants to get in the game.
That's right.
I'm studying this book. I'm a real estate investor myself. I learned so much from it, and I've been through a ton of deals at this point. If you want to get into commercial real estate, that is the book for you. My question for you is, what has inspired you over the past 3 to 5 years? And maybe you've always been like this, but something that I've noticed is you're everywhere now. the awareness, your name is mentioned so frequently, see your face everywhere, you're on stages, podcasts. I mean, you're all over the place right now. It's really, really impressive. The branding and the marketing and the giving back that you're doing right now. What inspired you? Did something happen in your life that you said, I'm going to give back, or was it kind of a gradual process? What is inspiring, Todd right now?
I always looked at people, and the one person I looked at the most was my brother, Justin. And my brother was always a lot smarter than me. And let's say he was less interested in money than me. And he became a lawyer and didn't practice law. And Justin would go out, and I'd always tell the stories. He'd go for a week with Jimmy Carter and build houses for Habitat for Humanity. He'd go clean the seashore. And if you still see my brother Justin on social media, Mr. Nepola is his social media. But if you see him, every single weekend he's out running with kids in wheelchairs, and he's giving back. And I was making a lot of money. He was not, but I was. And I was writing checks. And at first that felt good. And I would say, as you get richer and you don't really care as much about money, and people say, well, you got to care. You care, but truthfully, even if you put another 100 million in my bank, nothing is going to change for me because there's nothing I need. Yeah. But I started seeing the result he had. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring interns into my office, and I'm actually going to work with them. I'm not going to make them answer phones. I'm going to train people in real estate because a lot of people are reaching out. So from the interns, I started doing some podcasts. And then from the podcast, I said, I should write a book.
Incredible.
And I decided to write this book. And I said, I'm going to plug this book shamelessly because I'm going to give all the proceeds to charity because I'm a real estate guy. And as I started getting more involved, I said, too many people are teaching real estate and they want to go out and sell a course, but they don't do it. And I'm very bothered by that because I see these young people spending money and these fees are enormous. And you're taking a course by someone who's not actually doing it. They're just a teacher. Yeah. So I said, I'm going to do it for free. And that's when actually these young guys from the school at Hard Knocks reached out to me. And they said, we want to come interview you for our podcast. And I said, I was doing a lot of them. And when they put it online back then, they're humongous, these guys. They're terrific. They said, your thing went viral. People love you. They said, why don't you do some social media?
I watched it as well.
Yeah,
it was absolutely killer. They went to your office.
They're great.
Them and the three guys. So, it was cool.
Right. So they said, I said, I'm not following cameras around. They said, look, if you thought you had a reach with the podcast and a book, this will make you huge. I said, well, how does it work? They said, well, come to your office. We'll film you. Let's just try it 1 or 2 days. And that'll get us like 2-3 months of content. I'm like, well, everyone's going to see me in the same clothes. They said, who cares? I'm like, you're right. I'm not a fashion model. So
you look like one.
I said, we'll do it. I said, I'll commit to this for 6 months. So we'll do 3 recordings. So we agreed to do it for 6 months. And I had a couple of thousand followers at that point in time. And it just blew up.
That's awesome.
And the feedback I got, it wasn't stupid feedback. It was able to help so many people. Even this morning, a girl that I had met from social media from Nashville, she came to one of my one-day at Current Capitals, which we're doing tomorrow again. And she just came to town today, and I met with her for an hour before I came here. So and great. To see these young people build their careers. And this young girl, she's 25, and she's like, well, I feel like I have imposter syndrome. I feel like I'm not to be able to help them is more rewarding than me buying another building now. So I intend to go this path. And if you know anybody, I tell everybody, I am looking to teach a course at school at one day and lecture at schools, and I love it. I'm learning.
You're doing it on a daily basis, and you'd be amazing in that role. Let's talk about education quickly, since we're on that topic. And I've dived really deep on your content and a lot of your messages, and really a lot that you put out I can relate to, and I completely agree with. And we have a very similar path to some extent. There's, and you got 1 girl or 2 girls in college right now?
Both of them in college.
So now you have 2 girls in college right now. They have a father who's the CEO of this big company. You've done well for yourself, and you have a staff, and you have a payroll, and you have a nice office. Are you for college, or what are your, because you got 2 girls in college right now, or are you not for college? Kind of where do you sit in that discussion? Because right now, all the content that I'm reading, especially with the book, I consider you not just a mentor, but an educator. So I have to imagine that you do have some interest in education. So what are your thoughts on the college topic?
Well, I'm glad you said it that way too, because education and college are not aligned. College is an event in your life for 4 years. Yeah. Education is be a student for life. Yeah. And I am constantly reading. This year, I'm going to crack a new record in the amount of books I'm reading. Amazing. I'm going to podcasts, and I am watching guys like you on social media, and even like these guys who are younger, like the school at Hard Knocks. I'm still trying to get educated. So you never stop getting educated. I get asked all the time what I think about college. So I'm very honest. I never wanted to go to college. I didn't get into any college because I never planned to go. So I went to community college only because all my friends left town. And I was like, I'll have no friends. I'll be a loser. What am I going to do at home? So I went and then I did the 2-step into college.
Same.
Right.
I had everything that you just described
Exact
is me.
same thing. Right.
You know?
So I'm not surprised. So college is an event in life. If it's a financial hardship for you and it's going to set you back, it's not worth it. Yeah. If you're telling me you're going to go take out a $100,000 a year loan to go to a school and you're undecided, I don't think that's a great business decision. I think you're better off taking that money and trying some businesses. If you have the resources and you have the time, you should do it. It's fun. I want my daughters to do it because for me, it's not a financial burden, and I want to see them mature and develop. So they're going to get that. They're going to get to go in a world and meet a lot of people and experience things. My older daughter is a great example. My older daughter is a terrific girl, and she decided she wanted to get as far away from Florida as she could, and she got on a plane and she went to Loyola Marymount in LA, and she hated it. And she learned on her own. She didn't like that experience, but I never say no. I say yes. So she went there, and then she wanted to come home, and I said, yes, come home. So she wanted to go to FIU and study hospitality. I said, great choice. FIU is great. So she came home. She has an apartment. She's studying hospitality. I don't really like that. I want to go to Gainesville. So now she's going in January to Gainesville. So she's bouncing around, but she's figuring herself out.
Cool.
If we didn't have the resources to do that, she'd have to go get a job.
Right.
But I'm okay with it for that.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So one thing I admire about you is you have incredible energy. You're very, very positive. You have this contagious smile. You're very, very, very giving. Take us through the day in the life of Todd Nepola. You know, you wake up, you know, because I know you're a big Tony Robbins guy, and he's huge on routine. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest inspirations of my life was the book Awaken the Giant Within.
Me too.
You know, huge.
Yep.
That impacted my world. And I remember as a, I think, 20-year-old driving my now wife, girlfriend at the time, was driving to a job in downtown Miami. We both were coming up from Hollywood. We were in our early 20s when we were dating. We both had jobs in downtown Miami. And I would play an MP3, and it was Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within. And it was this book, and then I would roll the tapes, the Tony Robbins. This was 15 years ago.
Yep.
And I would drive, she would sleep, and I was like, hey, your stop's here. And she would go and she would walk into her office. But that 45-minute drive there and back, I would consume Tony Robbins. Oh, yeah. Huge on mindset, but also big on routine. He's the one that inspired me to do the cold plunge on a daily basis. My wife does it right now, every day.
Yep.
Take us through the day in the life of Todd. You know, you wake up at what time? You know, what's the morning routine look like? How do you stay so positive, so energetic? What are some of the things that you do that you can kind of share with the world?
Well, one thing I do that's always been in me, and you're right, I love Tony Robbins. I give him full credit for changing my life. I've had the honor of meeting him many times, not in a private setting like that, just running into him. And the last time I ran into him was at the Conor McGregor fight in Vegas.
No way.
And he was literally sitting next to me, like 2 seats over.
Oh my gosh.
And the time he spent talking, I talked to him for like 20 minutes. And he was just so great. And like, I was telling him how he changed my life. I'm like, but you hear this all the time. He goes, yep, it never gets old. And then he did that with everybody. So the man he's a saint. I mean, he's just a great guy. So he deserves it all.
He said the other day, I was listening to him on a podcast, and he said, what's the secret? You got the secret. What's the secret? He said, the secret to living is giving. Yep. You know, and I see that with you. And that's what we're trying to do here.
For me, it's gratitude. And I'm grateful. And as I said, what am I grateful for? And I say, every day above dirt, and I got this from my own father too, is a good day. So as long as you're here on earth, man, we're in a great country in America. We got everything going for us. What am I complaining about? Everything could get solved. And I tell my kids, wake up every day and think of 5 things you're grateful for, but make number 1 the fact that you woke up. And if you wake up at the very low standard of happiness, it's great. When I meet people that says, I'm not going to be happy until I'm 7% body fat, I got $5 million in the bank, I got $100,000 a month in cash flow, and I'm giving a TED talk. Man, you got some shit in front of you.
No. Yeah.
So just have a very low threshold for happiness.
So take us through the day. You know, what time do you wake up? What does the morning routine look like? What do you listen to on your way to work? Take us through the day. I'm curious.
So you're spot on, right? I'm a very routine-oriented guy, and maybe that's boring to some people, but I find the same things over and over. So I wake up, I have not used an alarm clock other than for trips when I have to wake up super early.
Yeah.
I never use an alarm clock. I wake up on my own. I go to sleep on my own. I don't have any problem sleeping. I don't have stress. I don't wake up in panic attacks. But I wake up and every day I'm going to read. And even if I only have time to read 3 pages, I'm going to read. It's part of my routine. So I do a little reading. Now, I don't read novels, not because I'm against them. I'm always reading something on self-help. Now, some people will say, oh, all you read is business books. Not true. I struggle with relationships. So I read about relationships.
Yeah.
I'm reading a book right now on relationships. I read about psychology. I read about
you.
sales. I read a lot of history books. So I only read books that I think are going to benefit me. For novels, I'd rather watch a TV series. So I read a little bit. If I have time in the morning and I'm focused on like doing a marathon or something, I will work out also in the morning. But for the most part, I don't. But just like you, and truthfully, because of guys like you, and specifically you, when I see you jumping in your cold plunge, I say, that looks like something interesting. And the building where I live has the cold plunge. I said, I'm going to go try it. And that's what I asked you before. I'm like, how the hell do you stay in so long? It's cold.
It's freezing.
But you know what?
Freezing.
I like to do those kind of things too. And once I get in it, I do it as a routine. Now, I didn't know you do it every day. I said, maybe not supposed to do this every day. I don't want to freeze myself to death. So I've been doing like every other day, but I might go every day.
Nice.
So I don't eat breakfast, and I've never really eaten breakfast.
So you've fasted. Interesting.
It's not that I'm fasting. I just don't feel like I have time. I'm too excited to get to the office and get going. I don't have time, and I don't cook.
What time do you get to the office on average?
Between 8:30 and 9 every single day. So then I get to the office, and on every Monday we have a Monday morning meeting. But then I'm in the office. I'm generally try to be in the office in the mornings, and then in the afternoons I'm on the road. I'll have a light lunch, or I'll meet people for lunch and have a business meeting for lunch. I will work out at least 5 times a week, and whether it's going to the gym. Now, I like to go to the gym later because I get home late. I don't get home till like 6:37. So I'll go to the gym at 8 or 9 o'clock and eat dinner at 10 o'clock. That's always worked for me. But I'll go to the gym or I'll go for a run. I love it when it's daylight out later because you can go for a run till 8, 9 o'clock. Now it's darker, so it's tougher. But I work out every single day. And then at night, I will put TV on. I'll read again, but I'll put the TV on. Usually it's on mute, and I'm kind of going back and forth. I'll have a drink and relax. And that's my night. And on the weekends, on the weekends, I like to go out and still have fun. I still like to go out and party. And, this weekend I was at Parents' Weekend with my daughter in Texas, and you got me in the club. I mean, I don't do that anymore because recovery the next day is not the same. But, I'm still up to having a lot of fun.
I love that. Well, one thing I wanted to thank you for is keeping it real on commercial real estate. This book is incredible. You're incredible.
Well, thank you very much.
I really, really admire, appreciate, and look up to everything that you've accomplished. A lot of people keep it in and keep the secrets in, but you're letting it out to the world. You've inspired, thousands and thousands of people, including myself. I've looked up to you way before the social media started.
That's right. I've known you for a long time.
I'm definitely an OG, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for just giving so much to everyone. You're a special guy. You're a special family man. You're a special businessman, and I really can't wait to see what the future looks like.
And we're going to have to get you a clean copy. I see you spilled something on that one.
I did, but I've been going through this thing for months now, but hey, I really appreciate you.
And I'm very proud of you. Keep up everything. It's a great podcast, great social media you're doing. And what I love about you, and I said this to you earlier, is you're a very well-rounded product. And I love your social media because you're a family man, you're traveling, you're working out. Like I said, working out too much, but working out, you're doing everything. And that's what people should aspire to. It's not just about buying real estate or buying something and making a lot of money. It's the whole package. Completely. And the truth is, if you become a billionaire and you didn't have those beautiful wife and kids of yours, you got nothing. So keep being great, my friend.
Hey, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for your time,
Thanks
Todd.
so much.
Thank you.